My name's Alexandra Pereira. I was born in New Orleans, Louisiana, March 18, 1994 at Oshlyn's Community Hospital. And I lived with my mother and my sister. New Orleans is it's hard to explain New Orleans in one sentence, one paragraph. New Orleans is very diverse. Growing up there was definitely an interesting experience. There's a lot of culture. There's good memories and there's bad memories. You have kind of a split between races there and different ethnicities. It's still kind of segregated, but at the same time there's so much culture there you forget about it. But it was definitely something I miss. I miss New Orleans. I did go to Mardi Gras as a child, and it was more of catching beads, kind of watching the floats, enjoying all the colors and everything. But as a child, it's a really different experience being in New Orleans during Mardi Gras. And for us, really, it was kind of not a nuisance. That sounds awful, but I mean, it blocks off a lot of traffic, kind of, and then you have all the tourism and everything that comes through. But I miss it. You miss Mardi Gras, even though it's something you see every day almost when you live in New Orleans, but not anymore. The weather in New Orleans is definitely stormy and humid. We had gone through so many hurricanes just from my time living there. It was just a part of life. You know, August hit, summer hit, and that was just hurricane season. It was a part of life. You just lived through it every year. You know, it wasn't anything big to us. Even Katrina, it was just another hurricane. It wasn't a big deal to us. I first heard about Katrina probably a week or two before it happened. I wasn't so concerned about it, partially because my mom wasn't concerned about it, and being a child at the time, you think that your mom and your dad know everything. So I wasn't too concerned about the hurricane. It was just another hurricane to us, and partially I think another reason was because about 2 months before it happened, we had another hurricane hit. I don't remember the name of it, but it actually turned before it hit us. So it was just one of those things. Oh, this hurricane's just gonna pass, just like every other hurricane. We knew approximately, I would wanna say maybe half a week before, maybe a week. I mean, we heard that it was coming, and then you heard that it was gonna be a bad storm. I remember all the police sirens in the street. They got on the loudspeaker, they told us to evacuate and everything. You had the store shut down, and the police were coming through. They were knocking on doors and telling us we need to leave. So obviously they knew it was going to be a bad storm. There was fair warning for it, but my mother was hard-headed and she didn't think it was going to be anything else. You know, she always said she lived through Hurricane Betsy, and that was way before my time, but it was just one of those things where you brush it off your shoulder. But that's how a lot of people are in New Orleans, really. My mother and I did not evacuate because my mother believed that it was just one of those things that would pass, but my sister left. My sister left immediately. Her and her boyfriend at the time left. My stepdad left. I think a lot of part of it was my mother was very materialistic and she didn't want to leave her belongings behind, and that sounds awful, but you know, she was concerned about her television and her rings and her furniture, because my mother didn't have a lot of things in life, and what she had was very important to her. Partially also because she was a stubborn person, just like me. So she's so whatever, it's just gonna flood a little bit, it'll go away, and it always flooded. You'd have like little sailboats in the river and everything and in the street. So that's that's a big thing, you know, the fact that she was stubborn and because you didn't want to leave that flat screen TV behind. It's true. The day that Katrina hit, I remember it vividly because I remember waking up to the rain, to the pouring torrential downpour of just, it was awful. I had never seen anything like that in my life. I woke up, my mother and I woke up, and the power was out. And we lived in an old house. It was probably 60 years old. So that wasn't something out of the norm for us. But the fact that the power was out, it was pouring, and I mean, there was water rushing down the street. It wasn't like any other storm. We had a emergency radio. I remember that was a crank radio that we bought a couple weeks before. It wasn't for the fact that the hurricane was coming. It was just for, I guess, fun, really. And we turned that on and it said, look, this is not good. You need to get out. And I noticed my mom was nervous, but it didn't mean much to me because I believed what she said, that it wasn't gonna be that bad. And I remember her drinking her coffee and just looking outside, and sure enough, the water started coming into the house through the corners of the living room, and that's when she started panicking, I think. I start moving stuff off the ground onto higher ground, like her, you know, our chairs and stuff, and I think that was at the point when we heard this loud boom, a loud crash, and we walk outside and there is a tree on top of the car. There's a tree on top of the car, which means you can't leave if there's a tree on top of the car and there's water in the road. I remember I went to pick up our dog, and she was old. She was 14 years old. She couldn't make it up the stairs, and it was one of those drop-down attics that you pull down and you go up in. So I carried the dog upstairs, I carried the cats upstairs, and my mom, I'm like, Mom, just go up there in the attic and sit down, you know, I'm gonna go get everything, I'll go get everything. So I went and grabbed food. We didn't go to the grocery store, so I had bananas and chips is what we had, and 2 gallons of water. Because apparently we didn't think that the hurricane was gonna be a big deal, like I said, so we didn't go to the grocery store. And we just went up in the attic. And my mom sent me down there to find her rings and everything. I mean, I remember wading through the water. It was 2, 3 feet, 4 feet high. It was just coming through, and I just waded through the water to go get the food and everything. And I was only down there in the water for about probably 30 minutes before I went up in the attic. I mean, I tried to grab, it got so bad that the water was almost above my head. So I couldn't do anything else down there, you know. So I grabbed food and water. I mean, we didn't have much food in there. It didn't last us but a day, but I grabbed what I could to make my mom happy and to get us food. I was a little scared when I knew I couldn't go back down because it all kind of hit when that water was so high and we were stuck up in that attic. And I don't think I had gone up there before. It was dark, it was damp, there were cockroaches, there were fiberglass everywhere. I kind of sunk in, but still my biggest thing was kind of try to calm my mom down and kind of make sure everything was okay before I started freaking out. The water had rotted through the floor. So while I was walking around, I remember my dog took off and I went after her, and that's when I fell through the attic floor into the water, and that was not a good time. When I came up, that hole wasn't above me, it was the attic floor. So I kind of had to swim around to get up back into the attic. I didn't sleep much throughout the whole experience, obviously, but I do believe I slept a little bit before because I woke up to my mother moving around. It was probably right before noon, actually. And it was hot, and my mother was saying that she smelled something. That's the point when my dog started to kind of act funny and kind of act unusual, so we knew something was wrong. My mom smelled the gas, and she went over there. She was trying to turn the gas heater off because it's this big heater tank, and she turned it up instead of turning it down. I do remember my mom was acting weird too. She was kind of acting out of it. I believe I was acting out of it too, but I was more in touch with what was going on because in my mind I knew that if the gas tank was leaking, I needed to get away from it as far as I could on the other side of the attic. And that's what I ended up doing. That's how I survived, I believe. But at that point, my dog had walked off, and I think my dog became unconscious, and she was in the water at that point. I mean, she was done, and she was an older dog, so I don't think she would have lived through it anyway. But my mom, I believe, kind of laid down, and I was a little concerned to what was going on, obviously, and I went over there, and she wasn't making any sense. She was just spurring off random words, random sentences, and I knew something was wrong. And at that point, I kind of realized, I think, that she had passed away. I actually tried to do CPR on her, but that didn't work, obviously, at that point. And I think I had taken a CPR class right before, luckily, trying to figure out what to do, but I wasn't doing it right, but I tried, you know? And at that point, I did start to panic, because it felt like I was the only one in there. And yeah, it was a lot like just feeling kind of alone, you know? So I went to go check on her, and then I really think that's the point where I kind of became super out of it. I don't know how to put it, but I remember walking around, kind of stumbling around the attic, not knowing what was going on, what was happening, and it was hot, and it was real just woozy, and where I had fallen through, I had fallen back into that, and I remember trying to swim. I do vividly remember trying to swim, thinking I could swim out of the attic. And my cats, I mean, they were a mess. They were all broken open and everywhere, and my dog was in the water, and I was just swimming. I think I was actually hallucinating at that point. I remember hallucinating, seeing things, hearing things that weren't there, kind of thing. Freaky images and stuff. I was just kind of thinking, what can I do at this point? What is there to do? I remember actually I tried to move her away from the gas tank. I remember that now. I tried to pull her away, kind of drag her away from the gas tank and pull her towards the water where I was. But the main thing going through my head at that time was, how can I help her? Is this it? Is she gone? Or is there something I can do? And then there was that, after she had passed away, there was that feeling, okay, I'm an 11-year-old child, where everything just kind of set in and I started just panicking. But it was mixed emotions. The biggest thing was survival mode. What can I do? How can I fix this situation? What can I do to provide to help her? And then after I realized that there was nothing, I just kind of, it was a feeling of fear and grief, but mostly fear and panic. There's a lot of panic. I went to the opposite end of the attic where it was cooler, and it was a lot cooler. It was by the water, I remember, where the water was coming up, and I knew in my mind, like, clean water, it wasn't clean, but water versus gas, there's had to be some oxygen coming off of it. So I went and I sat by the water, and I waited, and I waited, and I waited, and I waited, and if couldn't tell you how long it was. It felt like it was hours before they came, but I heard a boat, like a speedboat, because the water was so high, it had reached the top of the roof. And so when the speedboat was coming by, I started screaming for help. And at that point, I just lost it. I started crying, and I was screaming for help, help me, help me, help me, please help me. And they heard me, and they said, oh my God, there's a little girl in there, you know, there's somebody alive in there. And so they came up. I said, well, can you go check on my mom? And they said, no. Are you for sure that she's passed away? And I said, I don't know, but I think so. So they didn't go in there, but they said, your dog's done, you know, let's just come on, we're gonna get you water, we're gonna get you food. And it was just, I was so tired. You didn't realize how tired you were until, you know, you get pulled away from the situation. And I was just tired. I hadn't eaten, I hadn't had any water for days. My clothes were all tattered and gross. I remember they gave me clothes out the boat and like a shirt and stuff, because my shirt was all worn up. And from there, they just took me out. It all hit me at once at that point. But we had gone to several houses and we tried to save animals. There was no people. I remember that we passed a couple of houses and there were bodies in the water. that we passed, and I was in such shock at that point. You know, you didn't think, oh my God, that's another person that had just passed away. You're just thinking, how am I gonna get out of here? Where's dry ground? I need to get a hold of my sister. My mom just passed away. Oh my God, what is this all happening at once? I miss most about my mother she wasn't a very judgmental person, and that's what I miss about her the most, I think. The fact that even no matter what you did, she didn't judge you. She'd always try to help people out, no matter what, you know. But my mom was a great person. She had a lot of problems in life, but she was a good person. And no matter what, you know, she was a waitress her whole life, but she still tried to provide for us and stuff. And she didn't make much money, obviously, because she was a waitress and she worked at a bar, but even so, her kids always came first. And it's those experiences that kind of build us as people through life. And I was lucky to have my mother for at least 11 years of my life. A lot of people don't even have that. So. But I do miss her. I can't say that I don't. So. I was angry. You know, and they say there's the 5 stages of grief, and anger is one of them. And I would say that I was angry at her for making that decision to stay. But I knew that there was more to it than just her deciding to stay, and it wasn't my place to judge her for that. But I was angry at her just because she got hurt. If anybody gets hurt, I'll get angry at them. Why did you do that? You know? But I got over it pretty quickly. I was more angry, I think, at the time, and I'm not saying I'm not angry about this anymore, but I was definitely angry that my sister didn't stop her, that my sister didn't say, because she was a grown woman at the time. She had the potential to drag my mom out of there. My sister was angry at herself for that for years. I've heard her say it. I should have dragged her out of there, taken my little sister out, you know, and I was angry at my sister more than I was my mother, and it wasn't her fault at the time. She didn't know this was happening. You can't change a person's mind, but for a little bit, yes. I think my sister blamed me a lot for Katrina, and she said some hurtful things to me after Katrina, and I don't hold it against her anymore, but it was just hard, you know, being 11 and then trying to get through that. And then my sister didn't make it any better for us sometimes. I love my sister, but she's a very hateful person sometimes when she can't. So I think I kind of blame her for a lot of things in my life growing up that I shouldn't have, but I did. And it's just one of those things that I let go after a while. But I think I just get very emotional about her just because she was the most recent impact in my life too. But I love my sister. You know, you can't pick your family, but sometimes I don't like her, but I do love her. And she gave a good life to me growing up for the most part financially, but I just think she had a lot of hate for my mother and for me growing up. And I think she hasn't let go of a lot of that yet. Not yet, at least. Hopefully soon. She's getting better. She really is. She's becoming a better person, but there's just a lot of hate there. And it's hard to swallow sometimes. If I could say anything to my mom right now, it'd just be thank you, you know? Thank you for, even though you had it difficult in life, you tried to give the best to us, and maybe you felt like you failed us at some point and failed me. I would tell her thank you, you know? Thank you for everything. Thank you for putting us first, because not every parent will do that for their kids. So I guess thank you, and I love you, and you inspired me to move forward and have a better life for myself. That would probably be it. I think that Face Faction is a great opportunity to learn more about yourself and your past. Even given my experiences, it kind of helped me work through them almost, even during the interview. And I'm so, thankful that Story Shiraz gave me the opportunity to participate in this study. And I think that everybody should be given the chance to come to the class if they have it and just learn more about themselves, learn about their experiences, learn their personality traits and characteristics, and kind of move forward in life almost from it. And I think it was a very useful tool to help build your character.